I think we can start. So, good morning again to everyone, and welcome to our webinar for today, sponsored by Prospero Networks, entitled SolarWinds Best Practices Custom Application Service Views versus Default Views. For those of you that have joined us in our previous webinars, you know that these sessions are really much focused on helping our customers and users like you to improve how they use their Orion monitoring platforms. And I am joined today by, and my name is Mon Dule, and I'm the sales manager here at Prospero Networks. And I'm joined today by our technical director, Mark Roberts. Hey,
Good.
Mark, how are you today?
Good morning, Mon. Very good. Thank you.
Right. So before we start, there's just a few housekeeping items that that I would like to cover. First, the poll questions. There will be some poll questions throughout the presentation. So I would actually encourage you to participate because that gives us a good understanding of how's the attendees for today are in terms of their feedback. We also you also have the ability to actually ask some of your questions along the way. There is a right on your right panel of your screen, you were able to submit your questions. We will try to answer their questions as we go along, but if we don't have the time, we've actually set up a allocated a time to run through the questions. And of course, lastly, a recording would be made available on this particular session via our YouTube channel. Just search for Prospero Networks, and will also be sent to you a recording of this webinar. Okay, so in today's webinar, we will be sharing with you some best practice tips and advice on how to enhance some of your service application views within SolarWinds. From the many health checks and consultancy projects that we've delivered and worked with customers, we notice, and I know that there are a lot of customers that really have done not much in terms of by way of view customization. So hence today, Mark will be presenting where and how to start with these views, some specific examples and discussions from our projects to help you improve your overall visibility and monitoring capabilities. But before we do that, I'll just do a very, very quick introduction of who Prosperon is for the benefit of those that are new with these webinars. So, who are Prosperon Networks? So, as I've said, some of you may already have met us or know about us. But for those who don't, Prosperon is a leading provider of IT management solutions. We are very much focused on helping our customers maximize your existing investments in perhaps SolarWinds or monitoring solutions while really exploring newer technologies to address other pain points within the organization. We are a leading UK authority in deploying, tuning, and training users of SolarWinds products, having been a partner of SolarWinds for over 15 years. Our team is composed of experienced and certified SolarWinds consultants and engineers who have been responsible for delivering. Last year, we've delivered over 700 days of professional services and have worked with customers about 800 support cases to resolve this issue. So we are also an active contributor to Thwack. So many of you are aware of this. This is the online community forum for SolarWinds customers and users. And in fact, two of our engineers are actually Thwack MVPs. So Mark is one of our MVPs. So he should be providing very much useful insights for today's presentation.
I'll try, Mon. I can't promise
Pressure in there,
anything.
Mark.
I'll try. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So our we are actually driven. Prospero Networks is driven by our ethos of really putting our customers first. Listening and understanding your requirements and delivering them based on our experience, best practices, and partnership with SolarWinds. So this slides illustrates a snapshot of our professional services offering, from consultancy through to implementation, support, and training. Prosperon provides you with that, I would say, extra pair of hands to help you overcome your current monitoring and IT management challenges to help you achieve your business goals. And I think the more important thing is partner with you on your SolarWinds journey. So that's just really a quick overview of Prosperon. But before I hand it over to Mark, there's this poll question. First poll question for today: how much customization of the Orion web interface have you performed? So I think the poll is now open. It would be
I came up
interesting.
with that last one.
It would be interesting, Mark, to see if actually my experience working with customers is the same with our audience for today.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing the votes streaming in at the moment. I'm hoping we're going to get some manage to see how good our screens are popping in there. But I'm guessing, obviously, in terms of why people are turning up today, because they want to see where they should be going and what they can achieve with changing the views that are out of the box. So, yeah.
So I think the poll responses are actually in. We're seeing almost 50%, having a number of pages tuned to our
Yeah.
technology and audience, which is actually a good starting point, Mark, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see because as we go through the presentation today, I'm going to touch on the kind of common things that need to be done. And so certainly what we want to be seeing is get people getting to those tuned pages, making sure it's fit to the audience and technologies. And then those customers that we work with on a regular basis, we want to be getting to that yellow. Man, you should see how good our screens are.
Exactly, and absolutely. And there's a good 10% that, man, you should see how good our screens are. So probably we should also be collaborating with these customers to, collaborate with our best practice templates and views, Mark.
Yeah. And I'll discuss some of those as we go through the demo.
Cool. So I think I can now hand it over to you, Mark, for the meat of our presentation for today. So over to you.
Well, if you can just stick on the slides and just go on to the next one for me, and then.
Yep, sure.
Okay, so as we've kind of indicated, what we want to get across today is what SolarWinds provide. When you do an installation and you start populating node, what do you get? Well, you get a default layout. You get a starting point only, and this is a really key point to understand. It's SolarWinds don't know what technologies you've got. They don't know how many roles and user types you have. So they can't provide you a really focused display. It's just not possible. So what they do is provide a strong foundation for you to then grow, build, and really make work for your environment and your business use. So that starting point, you can see actually on the one on the right-hand side, fundamentally, one of the first things that we can see there is it tuned for your view? The presentation that you have available on your screens, what's your screen resolution? Well, we've got a big grey area over there that's not showing any useful information, and we're going to have to scroll down the page. Well, that's not efficient. And the information that's being displayed when we have a look at this, again, is not tuned. So we need to look at the areas that we need to provide filtering, the common used widgets that we can display on the dashboards, how we structure our journey and navigation through the site. That is not known by SolarWinds. So you have to have a think. You have to look at it, identify what you want to do, how you're monitoring your environments, the management functionality you're using in Orion, and then make the GUI work. Because the most important thing out of any monitoring solution, such as SolarWinds Orion, is that users need to be able to efficiently use it. You don't want to give them a scenario where they're having to do 3, 4, 5 clicks to get down to that root cause information as to why the platform is running slowly, why the application stack is in a failed condition. And we'll see how that permeates all the way through the GUI. It's not just the summary pages. The summary pages are there to really bring to the surface true issues, something that needs to be actioned, something that needs to be learnt for action. And so there are a number of detail pages which will also form the work and journey that you need to perform. Okay, can go to the next slide, please, Mom.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, so
I actually have my follow-up question on this one, Mark, because I was just thinking putting on my role, because I've been talking to, as an account manager, I also deal with this first-hand information from some of my customers. And the always the first question that always pops into their head is, okay, Mon, where do we actually start? So, and I think this is the start, the page that actually illustrates some guidance in here. So this is quite important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we have workshops with customers, when we sit around a table, or at the moment sit around a Teams or Zoom
With
meeting or whatever
virtual, yeah.
it is, yeah, a new world. These are the questions. These are the,
Mhm.
well, okay, who is going to be accessing Orion? What technologies are they responsible for? How do we then know how to structure the page interface? Do we have to make sure that there's security? So I know from all the conversations we had with a client recently with one of yours, Mon, was security is an issue. They can't
Yes,
have
I remember that.
everybody in the organization looking at all of the screens.
Yeah.
So understanding where that comes into play. So certainly with regards that kind of planning phase, it's
Mhm.
what are the goals? How are you using the monitoring and management platform that Orion provides? The licenses that you have, the modules,
Mhm.
therefore, and the data that's being collected. How do we put our page structure together? And the big thing on that second bullet point is identify your audience. This is a discussion I have every single customer all the way through is, do you have separation between your network team and your server team, your firewall and security team? Have you got Mary? We always have Mary in the call. That's the DBA. Has
Yep.
she got specific functions? She doesn't need to see the network infrastructure. She doesn't see everything. And so, from that point of view, we need to focus it, and we need to bring that efficiency through the menu, through the display, so that when Mary logs in, she sees things which are relevant for her, and she can look at the other things. But clearly, we need to take that focus.
Yeah, and I think this is very important section, Mark, about identifying your audience, because we often talk to the mid managers, the network engineers, but sometimes we also miss out some of the views that are actually required from a management side, and also the supporting departments such as application team. You did mention about Mary, so I think this is really a critical starting point, is really identifying the audience for these views.
Absolutely, and it is that scenario where common setup. So it's that kind of
Mm-hmm.
role function. It's the
Mm-hmm.
they're the network engineer, they're the DBA, etc., etc. But there's also that format of, well, management. Management
Mm-hmm.
don't need to go on there and see the finite detail. They need to go on and have a look at the kind of reporting, the top level view. Where are we in terms of our SLAs? How many issues have been dealt with by my team in this period? All those kind of things. That's their view. So is it built for them? Are they able to go on and do it? Because if it's not, they won't. And so we see this time and time again where a kind of installation gets stale because it's not tuned, and people are
Absolutely.
finding it
Yeah.
painful to journey through it, get the information they need, so they just get to the point where they don't bother. That
Yep.
completely diminishes the whole benefits of a management platform such as this. Um, So the technology stacks. Have you got your infrastructure in there? Have you got everything being monitored to the level that you need it? And then how do you structure it? How do you separate and make it? That actually, one of the questions that I get asked a lot of in the workshops is, well, I don't want to over monitor. Yeah, if there's too much there, it will be
Mhm.
confusing. Yes, I completely agree with that sentiment, but I also will then discuss against it and identify, well, if we structure and we control the way the information is presented,
Mhm.
yeah, that 40%, which is that vital information we have to see, versus that 60%, which maybe you would have stopped monitoring, from time to time, that's going to be useful. And so if we put that on the lesser screens, if we put that on a sub page, it's there, it's accessible. We don't want to alert on it, but people can use it when they need to. And there's a lot of benefits, especially at those kind of critical moments where there's big issues and the system's gone down. If there's that little nugget that gets surfaced, then great.
But in terms of our typical, you say, for example, Mark, you did mention about the workshops already. So, in working with customers right now, would you say that a lot of the projects that we've actually implemented specifically for views have actually used our, best practice templates, or are there more unique, requirements from the customers in terms of the views?
Well, obviously, from our point of view, we have a library of
Uh-huh.
common page layouts.
Yep.
Whether that's the morning checklist pages, whether that's the alert analysis reporting interface, the application service views, there's a whole range that we have in our library that we have scripts that can allow us to import it very quickly. So the
Hmm.
focus of our engineering time can be then to tune. Yeah, it's
Yep.
not every customer has every application exactly the same. And even if they
Yep.
did, they're probably using it in different ways. You've got the
Yeah.
cloud, you've got hybrid, you've got on-prem. All of these factors come into play to determine what is appropriate for a customer. So we obviously need to have those discussions, bring that information to the surface, so then we can design how we're going to build the views for the customers.
Great.
Okay, so in terms of also where to start, you can have a look at the bottom. You can see this kind of fix issues with existing pages. Is it an issue? Well, actually, it's more of a take the starting point and make it work for you. Throw away the stuff that you don't need, add the things that you do. And the big thing around there is understanding how Orion can change display views, the widget types that they've got. When I
Yeah.
do the demo in a moment, I'm going to show you some examples of widgets that fundamentally do the same thing. They just take a slightly different approach in how they do it. Understanding those differences, because there are driving forces why you use one version of that widget versus another, whether it's a chart or a table or a visual map or those kind of things. These are all things that need to be considered to make a good, effective UI, a user interface for your staff to navigate through Orion. Okay, if you can go on to the next slide. Okay, so again, probably third or fourth time I've said this, take those out of the box pages, look at them, review them, identify where they're not right. You can see on the right hand side, I've just kind of got the default top 10 page. I'm actually going to use this as a journey reference in the demo, because you can see the default page view has resources on it that probably shouldn't be there. You've got no filters in place to say, okay, these should only be populated with network devices. Why have I got servers displaying in what is the network top 10? And so taking them, looking at them, reviewing them, identifying the data that's missing, the way of presenting it needs to be adjusted. Okay, build upon them. And then start adding. What do you need to do? You need to add your additional dashboard pages for your roles, for your technology stacks, for your service applications. And this is the biggest one for us. When we are working with customers that have the SAM module and other
Yeah.
of the sysman module technologies, it's about bringing an application stack together. It's about the fact that we've got front-end web servers, and there's 4 of them, and there's a load balancer in front of them, and there's firewall and IPS protection in there. Those 5, 6 servers immediately are needing to be part of what we refer to as a service summary page. Sat behind them, there's a database. There's a middleware Java layer. There's a whole bunch of applications, servers, network devices that collectively allow that service to be consumed by users. Yeah, it's the SharePoint web interface. It's the ERP platform. It's the accounts package. That technology stack is complex. Yeah, if it's in the cloud, you've got cloud resources. If it's on-prem, you've probably got SAN, you've probably got virtualization. All of that's also in the mix. So now we're talking about 10, 15 different hardware pieces, probably 20, 30 applications that collectively deliver that service. So we want to be thinking in terms of putting all of that into our page structure. So when we see that there's a problem, okay, it's the network. The network team are then going to get involved and they can see it, but they can also observe, and this is a big part of that is observability, that may not be, that actually there's something on the application stack which they can then pass intelligently across to another team to say, it's landed on my desk, I've reviewed it, it's nothing to do with my network infrastructure, but I've seen this anomaly on the dashboard. I think this is something for you, Ted, to look at. And that topology, that technology stack, in Orion, there are different modules that perform different functions. So for looking at the storage layer, it's the storage resource monitor module. For the virtualization, it's the vman module.
Mhm.
For the network layer, it's the npm module. So these three, are getting part of that visibility. SAM is going to add to that list. Web Performance Monitor is going to add to the list. And then bringing all of that modular-based source data into that dashboard display is very much what we're talking about there. Okay, I think it's time for my demo. Is that correct? Is that the last slide?
Yes, Mark, that's the last slide. But just a follow-up question on this one. I know I have so many questions, but I was just thinking in terms of, you did mention about the summary pages. So do you have some sort of like a favorite summary page or a widget that, you would always push during your implementation or workshops? Or is it
Oh,
something that we can see in your demo?
do I have a favourite? It's like asking me whether I love my daughter more or my son more.
No, we're all about sharing best practice tips here, and I think these are like really the useful insights that we can share with the audience right now.
Absolutely. No, I jest, obviously. Absolutely, there are some key pages. I'll highlight them actually when I go through. So I
Sure.
do very much like the top 10 page that's out of the box. It's probably,
Uh-huh.
for me, one of the most complete pages. Um, but then the summary page, that home page, that is the most important one. That's the one
Hmm.
that people see when they first hit
When
the
they log in, yeah.
site. And therefore, to me, that's always going to be the favorite because that's the one that needs the most thought.
Yep.
And so actually, I'll be starting on this actually in my demo here.
So
So hopefully, I'll be answering some more of that question through that.
cool. So take it away, Mark, for the demo then.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so what we've got here, I've just deployed a vanilla, out of the box, nothing's been changed, Orion platform. So we've only put a couple of modules on here, just as a flavour for what we're going to be able to show today. But what you can see straight away is that this is the default homepage. And in terms of this homepage, what do we get? Well, there's only two really useful resources on here straight away. If I scroll down, you can see I've got all of that grey area on the right hand side that's showing no information. That's meaning I need to scroll down. I've now got imbalance in my column. So this last 25 events resource, for example, could be quite long. Do I need the last 25 events? Could I get away with 10? Could I get away with 5? So I need to think about tuning that. Do I edit this and reduce it down to such numbers? Is this a really important one? Do I increase it to 50? They are questions that you need to look at asking. We've also on this page got a number of placeholders. There is a placeholder here to say, would you like to put a map on here? Now, what's interesting with this is that this is the Network Atlas type map, whereas the Network Atlas has already been deprecated. We've got a mapping solution,
I
which
was
is
about to say, Mark.
exactly. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you have different teams doing different things in terms of development at SolarWinds, and the default out-of-the-box map is still referencing what we are referring to as the legacy mapping technology. So we'd delete this and we'd replace it with the new map2 methoding. We've got two kind of starting points. We've got the one for cloud monitoring. We've got one for creating groups. Well, these are here to say, look, here's some guidance. Here's the kind of things you should be thinking about doing. Well, if you haven't got cloud, if you've added already, then remove the widget, get rid of it. You don't need to have that. When we do our health checks for customers, where we review the platforms and we provide feedback on how they're configured, and I think from the poll, I think 21% said pretty much the default layout. We see these widgets in place all the time. They've just been left. And when they're in such prominent positions, that they're obviously not allowing you to put the useful information. So one of the kind of first remits in kind of web page design, when you learn, if you've ever done web page design, is the screen space has prioritization. As people of the Western world, we read from left to right. So invariably, our eyes are drawn to the top of the screen, and we move from left to right. So we need to make sure we put the most important information on there. And you can see in this default layout, that's kind of only partly happening. Yeah, we've got the all nodes list. We've got the active alerts. Well, yeah, great. But what about the rest of the information? So we'll have a little look at how we do things elsewhere. And actually, one of the things that does frustrate me is this all nodes widget. you can see it's just showing out by vendor. Well, immediately I've got to open that. Oh, okay, now it's got a sub level of status. Well, in this demo platform, I've only got 3 objects. Yeah, that's not appropriate. So we need to, again, think about how do we structure this? Do we reference our custom property for where the location is, or the business unit, or the device type? Do we need to put a filter on here to limit the results that come out? So this is the kind of starting point of what I've said in the introduction, where we need to be thinking about how we navigate through the screen. If I'm having to immediately click once, twice, and now I can see some useful information, that's taking up time, that's taking up effort that I may not even bother doing. So just changing this and, as I say, using a custom property as the top level, taking off the status. If you've only got 100 devices, you don't need 3 tiers to navigate through on that. Take it down to 1. If you've got thousands of devices, do you replicate this widget and put filters on it so you see the different business units or technology stacks in separate trees? If I have a look at our example here, so this is one of our demo platforms, and it's by no means complete. It's by no means tuned to how you would do it, but it is an example as for this demonstration of how we can display information. So you can see I've got 2 mapping technologies here. Yeah, one is using the worldwide map. We have provided methods in our blog actually on how to populate this list automatically, or this display. You don't need to be putting them on manually. You can go to them automatically via data updates. You can see actually what we've got here is an interactive map. And so we've overlaid some JavaScript to bring in the ability to put those views in. Now you look at that and go, well, I don't need to see the temperature. We do have some customers that have things like North Sea oil rigs, radio, laser signals, that being able to see where it's raining, yeah, is important. So if we just put that on, yeah, okay, good. Now I'll look, see if I've got some rain coming toward me. So again, it's thinking about the audience. How do we need to consume the information? What is actually useful information to display? Well, again, we've got a visual map here. As humans, we kind of absorb information visually better than we do a big block of text. And so this is a good medium. You can see the benefits of the new method where we've got traffic levels being displayed. It's going to change red if it goes over threshold. We can put our information displays on this. What we've actually got here is an example of the active alerts. Yeah, so the 2 different widgets. We've got active alerts and we've got all alerts. So one is a kind of paginated table. Yeah, so I'd have to go through it and have a look. And then the one underneath it, I've got a little more richness about it. But do I prefer this visually? Is this work better for a knock screen compared to a user's dashboard, for example? Again, things to think about in terms of how you define your layout. What data do we display on here? I've got my most important information. Yeah? So this is, for me, one of my most important metrics that Orion collects is how busy are my WAN links, and how busy is the traffic that flows over my WAN link. So now I can see that a spike occurred a certain time and a conversation took place between these 2 machines. Oh, okay, this is all useful information. We've got an example of a custom query here. So this is a really powerful widget that allows you to bring different information together. So maybe this is my grid matrix, as you can see here, on service availability for my key application platforms. So this is one way of doing the kind of summary page. We're giving information. We're showing kind of status of key objects. In the 2020 update, SolarWinds brought in what they're referring to as the modern dashboards. Now, the first thing to reference in this is you can see that it's not conforming to the old, not old, still there, still relevant, but the previous method of having these very structured columns. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, however you want. This is a solution which is changeable. We can put things on different sizes. We can have different column widths. We can put a dashboard together which is more kind of conducive to a knock screen. Yeah, if I'm standing 7 meters away, I'm not going to be able to read a lot of the information that was shown on the previous display layout. But clearly, taking this different approach means that this is more suited to that kind of use. Fundamentally, the approach that we're demonstrating on this page is that this is something for that kind of service desk, for that knock screen, where somebody will look at it and identify, oh, okay, I've got a lot of alerts coming in, and a lot of them are critical. So now that's going to draw my attention to the fact that something needs doing. So this is really my action panel. This is the state and health of my environment. I can see very clearly that I've got interactive charts here. So that kind of thing, it's generating the most amount of alerts. That's just nonsense. Somebody needs to either go and fix it, or I'm going to basically say to them, you don't care about this, do you? Really, you just need this as a report once a month to say how many of your machines have got bad tools on them, so you can then go and fix it. You don't need to alert on it because clearly you're not actioning it. So I'm learning something about how I need to change my environment just from this page here.
This particular view, Mark, I would say would be the ones that you actually see or project in your, when you have some knock centers, or it's just really those screens that you actually use in your office, right?
Absolutely. As I said, these are the ones which we are building for that service desk
Correct.
operative,
Yeah.
for the wallboard displays that are hanging on the walls, because this is the one that kind of draws people in to do the investigation.
Yep. That quick glance and overview. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so just a quick recap there. We've had a look at 2 different ways of doing that kind of summary page, that top level global view. Certainly what we do is we advocate that we create views for different roles. So here's the network tab. This should be the one that the network team should be primarily using. They shouldn't be going through this home link. That's the everything model. We want to be using the applications for the systems and the application stack and putting their navigation through on this. So now we've immediately got that separation between the roles. I may have one specifically here for the voice team, for example. Well, they're going to fit in the mix, so we've got a particular link for them. Same for whichever is your focus. If you've got people with very specific roles, create the menu link and put it on the display so they can access it. Also think about creating restricted menus. So if I was someone that only looked after the devices in APAC, and I don't see anything, I don't need to see anything, I'm never ever going to be asked to cover support around the world, well, put a view together which restricts it, so it only populates with those located devices.
Mark, in terms of restricting those views, then how granular it is in terms of what level we can actually do the control.
Well, actually, let me use this as an example. So I've gone to the top 10 page here. Yeah, this is
Yep.
the network top 10 page. And again, actually, I went to do it on this site. So here, to reaffirm, this is the out of the box, untouched by human hands situation. And you can see that actually it's a little bit limp. Yeah, we haven't got all the information that I would like to have on here. So what we've got here is just an improved example. But what I've done is I've actually reset a number of things that we would change. So in terms of that granularity, many of the widgets could be tuned. So this widget here, it's showing the top 10 nodes by the current response time. And one of the huge annoyances that I have, and I've spoken to product managers on this subject many times at SolarWinds, is that it populates with devices that are down. Yeah, it populates with devices that we're not actually polling. Yeah, so these are external devices that we are not collecting data for, so there is no response time. And therefore, in this case, 5 rows of this table are being populated with things which
in
red. It's nonsense. So one of the things that we always do is go and put an appropriate filter in. So you can see that if I put this filter in, yeah, don't show devices that are down, don't show devices that are false, and now we've got a controlled display. I would do the same on this one. Yeah, same filter. I don't want it to display devices that are down. Notice this bug. Yeah, whenever you edit to these top 10 resources that are the kind of top X, it does that top X. So you just edit it and put the number in manually. As I go down, you can see that I've got servers populating this page. Well, just to recap, this is the network top 10. Why am I taking up resource space for network devices? I've got objects being monitored here where actually the cache should be full. It should be 100%. And actually the logic for the threshold should be changed to say, actually, if it goes below 98%, that's a critical condition. So what we've got here is a little filter that we'd always put in. So I'm only going to populate it with fixed disks. I don't want memory. I don't want cache disks to populate this. And now I've got that capability going in. So just some very quick and easy things to do in terms of tuning, in this case, widgets, allows me to bring immediate focus in. One of the other things that I've got here is that I want to put a limitation on the page. So here I'm coming to the settings of the page. I'm going to put a limitation here, and you can see there are a whole bunch of options, but just from a speed point of view, I'm going to use the nice and simple filter that Orion provides that says, I've identified this as a network device, I know it's a switch, I know it's a router, I know it's a firewall, yada yada, and then I'm using that. So now this network top 10 page, in the space of, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, has now got some clean focus to it. I've moved some of the widgets, I've extended the width, because I don't want that kind of thing occurring where I've got rows forming with multiple heights, because it means that the height of that box is too big. So I identify which of those widgets use a lot of width, I put them all on one column, and then I identify the ones that actually I can shrink down, and if my little mouse will grab it, come on, there we go. So now I know that I can tune my display so I can fit my third column in. So simple things that can make a big difference in how you consume and build your dashboards.
Yeah. So Mark, perhaps because you've been working with a lot of implementations already or projects, it seemed like very straightforward and easy to you. But for someone, say for example, that is actually new in terms of really wanting to enhance the current views, you said 4 minutes earlier, but what's a typical timeline, or how long does it actually take for a view to actually be constructed?
Well, obviously there are big factors that come into play on
Mm-hmm.
that one. It's
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, expertise, experience, because it's not just about, okay, which widgets are going to be best to do this. It's also actually what technology. So if
Absolutely.
I just actually cut across here and go to my SQL Server page,
Mm-hmm.
as an example, maybe I don't know anything about databases. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what the important metrics are for SQL. So as part of the requirements to answer that question, I
Mm-hmm.
need to go and find out from my DBA what metrics are important to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So here you can see, for example, I've put together a dashboard where I'm bringing deadlocks, I'm putting um, um, a number of data metrics. I've got a number of wait times coming from my DPA module. I've got a number of users that connect to the transaction rates, all those kind of things. So
Mm-hmm.
I've I've determined which are the key KPIs, those key performance indicators, and
Yep.
I've brought them to the surface on our summary page. So I didn't have that knowledge, but I've spoken to the SME, that subject matter expert in my organization, or if I haven't got one, I've done some research online and I've identified. So it's very easy to do a search for Microsoft SQL Server, important metrics. People will have blog posts all over the place. I can now see the data that's been collected, put that onto a dashboard. In terms of how long it takes, a dashboard can take 10, 15, 20 minutes. It could take an entire day. It really does come down to the depth of data. And most of that, as I say, is about just confirming what data should be there
Agree.
and then what is the best way of displaying it.
So, and I
Whether it's,
assume that usually happens, Mark, when we actually do our, the exercises during the workshop, right? In
yeah,
terms of gathering the requirements from these different teams.
exactly. It's about speaking to those team members,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what they actually need to monitor, what data are we collecting, and
Mm-hmm.
then okay, so we've got a user connection thing. Well, I could just show a value. I could just put 146 out on the screen, but clearly
Mm-hmm.
there is much more power in identifying, well, actually, if we're storing this historically, a chart is good because then I can see immediately what my usage patterns are, my trends are. And as I navigate, you can see with my stack chart methodology that when I have a lot of users connect, well, does that immediately turn into wait times on a particular database, on a particular metric type in there? Well, I can literally just move up and down the page and see all of that in correlated form.
Mm-hmm.
I may put a subpage together that allows me to put all of these on individually so I can separate them out perhaps. Now, again, this is a personal preference in many ways. You could look at that and go, well, that's all very nice. I've got my distinctions in terms of my SQL metrics. I can see them in isolation. I can see them in a nice clear form. But then I've also got this ability, as I say, with regards the performance stack display here, to layer them on top of each other and have this correlated view. When I hover over a metric here that I've got big Manhattan stack on, is this correlated to things below? Well, yes, immediately you can see this one here. Yeah, we've got a lot of wait times occurring on the Orion database, on the one of the lab databases, and we can scroll down and we can see that that happens at exactly the same time when we're talking about particular queries. So immediately I can now identify that it was one query on the SQL database that was
Mm-hmm.
consuming a lot of that time. Yeah, just that causal effect visibility. And that's just because I've chosen to use that type of widget.
And just out of curiosity, Mark, because we're now talking about views, and one of the and I would assume that with the newer ways of working right now, a lot of people are mostly working from home. Have we done any project or views recently wherein it's much more focused on the newer setup of working from home?
Again, that loops back to everything I've said about understanding your metrics.
Yeah.
This change, this wholesale shift that happened literally overnight, where all of
Correct.
those LAN infrastructure things that where everyone's working from an office are being consumed to do their work. They're now
Mm,
separating that out and putting that remote on networks they are not in control of over VPN tunnels that they not really designed to support that number perhaps. It's just about the metrics. What information do
mm,
you need to see? Well, you need to see VPN tunnel counts. You need to see WAN performance. You need to see Citrix performance metrics. They are now all relevant for home working. So it's putting that dashboard together. It's coming into the dashboard, creating a new page. I think actually we've got it one on here.
yep.
I can't remember. Yep. So remote working.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
putting that dashboard together that's focused towards that function, that technology, that user role, that business delivery aspect, so you can get visibility on that very quickly and easily.
Great. And I think that's useful because we talk to customers and they always say, Mon, we want to utilize SolarWinds to be able to support us from working from home, monitoring our users. So these are like
Yeah.
examples that we can actually share as a good
Yes.
starting point. But my takeaway is really that metrics, Mark. Like you keep on mentioning about metrics, so it all
They
starts
drive everything,
with
mate.
the
Absolutely.
driver. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Okay.
So just very quickly, again, this is the default SQL summary page. So you can see in terms of the menu system, SolarWinds are providing some shortcuts to common enterprise applications. Well, if you're running Office 365, take Exchange off. If you don't have any Linux servers, take that off. Add the application servers that you do have. So you can see here that we use the Atlassian platform for our wiki. So we've got a particular page for that. On one of our demo environments, we've got an e-commerce website simulation. And so from that, I want to make sure that that is working correctly. That's my e-commerce website. It makes me money. I need to monitor that very closely. Patch levels. So it's really about putting, let's say, this navigation that allows me to go into this service function. So SQL Server very rarely is a service on its own right. Typically, it's going to be part of an application stack. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight here, or a couple of things actually, so this SQL log, this is my summary page for all of my SQL database servers. If I've got one, as we have in this demo platform, or if I've got 50, then bringing this into play so I can have a look and I can do a keyword search for things that are happening, whether it's a logon failure or a backup or something. Then I
Mark,
can
sorry
look
to
for.
interrupt you. There was a specific example on them wanting to actually monitor SQL clusters and storage. So perhaps whilst you're on this topic.
Yes. So if it's okay, I'll answer that one at the end,
Okay, cool.
because yeah, I was slightly off subject in terms of views, but actually, let me answer it very quickly now. So when monitoring SQL clusters, use the app insight for SQL and go through the listener address or the VIP address. That's going to give you visibility of which one is active, if you're active passive, and then apply monitoring to your members that confirms the basics. So if one of your backup servers is now your reporting server because you're using it always on, what is it that's relevant to monitor from that? Okay, so yeah, just a very quick and easy example here of taking a custom query widget to allow me to create something that's interactive, that's providing that function. There are many, many examples of how we use this custom query widget, looking for IP addresses, looking for MAC addresses, looking for software that's installed on machines and patches that are being deployed. What we've got at the bottom here is a replacement. So it's taking the default, if I can find it, should be here. There you go. So when you have the top 10 components by statistic data in SAM, the default is it will just show the biggest number for everything that's relevant for that page. And so here you can see that one of the monitors in here is how big the files are and such like. So that's always going to be the biggest number. That doesn't tell me anything really useful. So what we've got here is some examples of saying, well, okay, across all of my databases, show me the biggest ones that have got page faults or page splits. And so it's putting, again, an appropriate filter in place to bring this in. And I've clicked edit. I may have logged out. I'm not sure where we were. So let's say that is a most commonly left one. Don't leave it. If you've got this on your page, it's nowhere near suited to being beneficial. All I did on my page was I took that, I added a filter, I then duplicated it, I edited the filter, and it literally is just where the monitor component name includes the keyword lock. And this one, paging. Okay, so what we're going to do is just stop that. And if I go to my e-commerce site example here, I may have just broken things by navigating around pages halfway through. Let's see. Looks like it. This is one of our demo platforms where it turns into a bit of a playground. So I think in terms of timing, we're pretty much there. The key things, just to recap on this, you've got your page structure, change it, look at your audience, look at your technologies, the metrics that you're collecting for those technologies, and then identify how you want to rebuild that starting framework that SolarWinds provides to then make it really work for the audience. Mm-hmm. So, Mon, do you want to go back to your slide deck, my friend?
Cool.
Oh no, I'm going to do that, aren't I? We said I was going to do
that. No, if you can, Mark, but I can share my screen.
No, it's okay. Let me just
we
do
actually
this.
are good on time in terms of our session for today. So we're just the next section would actually be the last poll question for today, and then we go straight away to the Q&A. But if you have any questions, guys, if you can put it in the chat channel for your questions, and we can entertain them after. So, Mark, the next poll question then, guys, would be what views have you created in your SolarWinds Orion platform? So please, if you could select all that applies to you, that would be great.
Okay, so again, looking at what's coming in. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's good to see that custom node detail pages are being built.
Yeah, a lot of our customers, actually most of them, 100% has actually done some the custom node details page, um, use of custom query mark, HTML
Yeah,
is also
yeah,
high.
liking that. I say they're the
And
ones which really show that advanced use, that there
mm,
is a use case to say, okay, I've got some data I want to display. There isn't a native method of doing that. So there isn't a pre-built
mhm,
one which I just drop on the screen and it's there. And so therefore, thought and understanding is being utilized, whether it's just providing links across to other platforms or embedding content from other systems. This you saw on the we showed on your slide and talked about it. This integration, we're doing more and more integration, so we can bring information into the Orion display, not just for Orion source data, but also from other systems like your ITSM and ITOM platforms.
agree. I was actually surprised, Mark, that the lowest was actually the service oriented summary pages. Why do you think this is the case?
Sorry, I lost you there. Why? What? Sorry.
In terms of the service oriented summary pages,
Oh,
that was
being the
actually the
lowest.
lowest, yeah, at 43%.
Yeah, that is interesting because,
Yeah,
as I said right at the very beginning, it is very much about creating those service-oriented views, bringing that multiple
exactly.
technology stacks, we refer to as an N-tier stack application, putting all of that into a collated view. Yeah, storage, virtualization, database, Java, web front end, whatever the makeup of the application is, many servers, many applications, many network devices, they should be on a single view, and we should see that in that way.
Exactly. And I think I think when you also talk about what would actually interest management, and also your, for example, if you're supporting external customers, are actually the anything that has something to do with that particular service. But I think it varies, Mark, because of what type of service organizations actually provide to their customers, be it internal or external, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's something which, um, when we've gone through that thought and we've identified that benefit and implemented, then that usually
Mm,
brings more people out to say, "Oh, I've seen these guys have this view," and then we have that ability to then expand it and say, "Can I have as well? I've seen the
yeah,
benefit." Okay,
exactly.
just a
So we,
prompt. If
we
anyone has any questions, please use
exactly. So
the
we still have some time.
yeah, please use the questions session. Obviously, this is your opportunity to ask how to achieve something, what type of widget you would use, whatever related to kind of putting the views together. Does anybody else have anything? Just give people a chance to do some typing. Please take advantage of this. If you do think of questions after this, please send us an email at info, or raise a support case, support@prosperon.co.uk. We
Or
can,
I
go
put
on,
in my sales hat, Mark,
go on.
reach out to your account managers. I mean,
Yeah,
we're actually here to support you. So I've seen a lot of our customers are actually joined in today. So if there is any interesting section or portion that you would like to discuss with, and get in some, that initial view, or guidance from Prosperon team, we would welcome those discussions. And I think it's also a good, we are already going into 2021, Mark. So I think having an understanding of what views that we actually would be beneficial to your customers would be great. So
okay.
there is actually a follow-up question, Mark,
Yep, let's see.
asking about a detailed setup on how to probably do this via Thwack.
Yeah, so certainly Thwack is an amazing resource. So there are pages on there and content on there where people are sharing what they've done. So if you go on to Thwack and do a search for knock, for example, you'll see that there are lots of people that have shared how they've done their knock screens.
Yeah.
Um, and if it's not up there, if you can't find it by searching, then post a question up. Say, we should be, as your providers here, or if you're not customers of ours directly, an opportunity to test us and to confirm how much we know about the platform. Send us those questions. As Mon says, reach out to your account manager. But Thwack is a very good resource to see how other people have done it, what they're doing.
There's also another question, Mark, in terms of how do you actually apply view limitations on group of groups and
Okay.
having an Orion map displaying more Orion maps in there as a top level service map, or actually get the objects to display in the map.
Wow, that's a question and a half. And well done for not taking breath through that.
Yeah.
If I understand the question, what appears to be the thing here is where we're using groups in Orion.
Yeah.
So we're putting multiple objects in there, and we have a kind of group summary page, as I'm guessing. Let me know if I'm along the wrong lines here. That can be a problematic approach. So using the limitations on groups can sometimes cause problems. So I tend to use custom properties for cleaner filters. So I'll build a particular view layout and then utilize custom properties and put a filter in place on that page that is going to restrict that page content to that service application. Certainly groups and subgroups within there, this group of groups method is viable, but we do tend to see some issues with regards to that kind of topology where it doesn't always put into, as here it looks like somebody's had some issues putting some things on a map where it gets filtered out, or often is the case where it doesn't filter out the objects that should be displayed.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. So I think that's it for some of our questions. But again, as I said to you, as what Mark and I has alluded earlier, if you have some follow-up questions or need additional information on your questions, please feel free to reach out to us. So there is a survey at the end of the webinar. So please, if you can spend a little bit of time before you leave to actually fill out the survey, that's going to be useful for us. And otherwise, thank you so much, Mark, for the session for today. And of course, thank you so much to our attendees. And we hope to see you in our next webinars. So again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks everyone. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.